Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Daz.
I'm Gaynor.
Okay, just the two of us today.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about property.
Yes.
Yeah. So as people know, we are looking to retire maybe in the USA.
We are.
In a couple of years' time. So it's getting a good idea of what's going on in the USA, keeping up to date with it all.
What we can afford, what we can't afford.
Correct. And this is a video on 10 overpriced housing markets.
I know which one's going to be on there. It's got to be New York.
I think the main cities are always going to be high priced. LA, New York, Miami, Boston, any major city, Chicago, any major city like that's always going to be high priced.
Without going into any of the areas, I always thought I'd love to live in Colorado. Yeah. When I've looked, it's very expensive.
Yeah,
I've got a friend who lives there.
Because it's got everything.
Yeah.
It's one of them that's... I think a lot of the US states have everything that you want. Whether you're looking for, 4 seasons where you can ski in the winter or do winter sports or winter activities, all the way through to your summer where you've got beaches and, and things like close by the lakes. The more I'm looking at Michigan, the more I'm sort of like attracted to that area.
Yeah.
There's certain parts of Michigan where I just look at it and think,
don't
care, I'm not asked about that. I can always, if I'm retired, I can always go and live in Spain for 6 months in the winter.
Yeah.
Or 4 months in the winter and get warm. And then always go back and have the high. But I like the cold weather.
Yeah.
So for me, like going for a walk
Spain,
in
you could just go to Florida.
Exactly.
You don't have to go all the way to Europe.
Yeah, but I do like Europe as well. Don't want to use that European flavour.
Yeah.
But 10 overpriced housing markets in the USA. Let's have a look.
Today I'm going to tell you where you shouldn't buy a house. Over the last year, housing markets across the US have slowed down a whole bunch. We're seeing fewer home sales, lower prices, fewer houses on the market, and desperate real estate agents pulling shifts at Taco Bell. One aspect of this is the home prices. Besides not having enough homes on the market, they don't have enough buyers. So people are lowering the price of the homes they have for sale. That isn't the case everywhere. There are still places in the United States where folks are shelling out more cash for a house than they're really worth. The Department of Housing and Urban Development says that if you're spending more than 30% of your monthly income on your home, it's a bit of a strain on your wallet. It depends.
Just to give people an idea of what's happening over here in comparison to wherever you live, we've had a big influx of was it Hong Kong residents that came over from China. So when I don't know what happened. Well, I do know what happened in Hong Kong, but I don't want to get into it. But a lot of people came to the UK.
Yeah, they were given an option.
They've all kind of tended to sort of migrate to one particular area. And it's kind of raised the house prices right here.
It's raised the house prices, but also the schools didn't have enough capacity for the children.
Yeah, so schools are bursting.
So they've added an extra year group to all the schools.
Yeah, and the other thing as well, which has really come about, which for me is good, is they brought the culture with them for food. And loads of Chinese restaurants and supermarkets and everything are opening up in the area, sort of thing. So it's one of them. But that's boosted the price of the house market.
Bubble tea.
around this area. But when you look at certain other areas, because the interest rates have gone so high, a lot of people are trying to get rid of the houses, and we're seeing an elite area, which is just the opposite side of where all the Hong Kong residents have come from. Just on the opposite side of Altrincham, the elite areas dropped big time, and their houses, you can't get rid of them. They're just not selling at the moment because they're so high priced, and they're trying to drop them down. So you can get good pricing for decent houses at the moment over here.
Depends on which study you look at, but most economists and people that are really good at math and they own easels and calculators and stuff like that say that you should spend between 25 and 28% of your monthly income on housing. If you're spending over 30%, this means you have a lot less cash for important stuff like clothes, car insurance, health insurance, and Starbucks. Now, in this video, we are going to list what percentage of the average Joe's average salary would have to go to housing to live in this city. One thing I will tell you is we eliminated some cities in Hawaii because that's a different situation. Most of the homes there are second homes for really rich people, and it really throws off the numbers. Basically places where the average Joe doesn't live, because 105% of their salary would be going to housing. End up selling feet pics. So that's what we're doing today. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Orlando, Florida. People say living in Orlando, Florida must be like you're on a never-ending vacation. Maybe. The locals don't feel that way because occasionally you get mail reminding you that it's actually real life and the rent or the mortgage is due. Orlando is where you can find yourself spending your Sunday mornings deciding between hitting Disney World, Universal Studios, or SeaWorld. Let's talk money. Orlando's cost of living is a little high and it has a reputation for doing a magic trick on your wallet. It's not quite abracadabra, you're saving savings disappears, but it's not far off. Housing prices in Orlando have been soaring faster than SeaWorld, distancing themselves from the whale riding show. So while living in Orlando...
Maybe we should have kept our gaff in Orlando.
I know.
We had a place in just outside in Kissimmee, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
I mean, we used it once and then said it's no point keeping it. But maybe if we kept it now, we might be rolling in the money.
We will, yeah.
Might make every day feel like you're at a theme park adventure. Just remember, the real thrill comes from trying to balance your budget at the end of every month. Half the people living in Orlando can't afford to go to the theme parks. Orlando's home values are about 42% higher than the national average. The median home value in Orlando is $373,000. Now remember, they say 30% of your income should go to housing. In Orlando, the average Joe spends about 43% of his income on housing.
Yeah. Especially when you've got everything else on top.
Number 9, Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix is the most populated state capital in the United States and the only state...
Wow, I didn't know that.
No.
But I'll tell you what about Phoenix as well. I watch one of these realty shows where they sort of like they get a house and they do it up and then sell it and they flip them.
Yeah.
I watched it around Phoenix, Arizona, and it's some of the house prices and the way they do them up go real.
Really?
Yeah, they do really well on the. I don't know if it's just for show, but from what I see, it's quite high. But I didn't know that was the. I'm gonna have to go back on that. The most populated capital in the USA.
Yeah.
Arizona. Phoenix is the most populated state capital in the United States and the only state capital with more than 1 million residents. That probably won't be the thing for much longer. Austin, Texas is catching up quick. Only about 40% of the people who live in Phoenix were born in Arizona. Arizona's a lot like California in that respect. Far too many out-of-staters living there, and most of the residents who were born in Arizona are first generation. But living in Phoenix, Arizona is like living in a sauna with a skillet floor set on high most of the year. The cost of living, like the temperature, is a little high for most people. It's like the city took the dry heat thing and applied it to your wallet, slowly dehydrating your cash reserves. They've got a high cost of living and a pretty high home value for being in the desert. I'm sure it would be a lot less if people hadn't been flooding in there for retirement over the decades. Phoenix, as you can imagine, has some of the highest utility costs in the country. Or I shouldn't say the cost, the average bill is very high, and that has to do with running your air conditioning 24 hours a day. Remember everyone, the smaller your house is, the cheaper it is to keep cool. I had one guy give me a hard time. When you move to Arizona, you don't need an air conditioner. A swamp cooler's just fine. I was like, okay, lizard man, whatever you say. That's something my dad would say, honestly. But when you start looking at the home prices here, you start thinking a tent may be a viable alternative. The average home value in Phoenix is $414,000. That's the fourth quarter 2023 numbers, by the way. The average Joe spends about 44% of their income on housing in Phoenix. About 14% higher than it should be.
Boston. I knew Boston would be expensive. I do as well.
Number 8, Boston, Mass. Or Massachusetts. I said that a while back and threw some guy from the Netherlands off. He didn't know what I was talking about. Living in Boston is like being in a relationship with a high-maintenance partner who demands you pay for everything, including their expensive tastes, but you stick around because of the history. And the clam chowder, I guess? Boston is notorious for its sky-high rent prices. They're so high you figure you might as well buy a house, but then you look at the house prices and you go, I can't afford a house, I guess I gotta rent. It isn't just housing. The cost of living, including goods, services, and utilities, they're all really high in Boston. Boston is one of those cities I would love to live in, a couple years at least, but honestly, it's just too expensive. It wouldn't be worth it. I mean, the history alone just draws me to this city. Sure, I can go visit for a couple days, a week, or whatever, but you just wouldn't be able to see enough. I want to be able to walk the streets that so many of the people from our history walked, you know?
Where did Bob and Lydia live? Was it Boston?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they live there or?
Yeah, he had an internship for, I think it was 3 months.
Yeah, because we went to see him there, didn't we?
Yeah. So they were living there for about 3 months.
Yeah, he was, because we stayed right on the harbour there, didn't we, when we went to... We've been to Boston a few times.
Yeah, they had an apartment there, didn't
First time we stayed in Lynn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sort of like made our way into Boston, sort of like from that area, sort of like a week-long vacation in Lynn, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, what are you doing?
Well, we didn't know the area, did we?
No, it was fine though.
We just arrived and we were like, this is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, young and innocent.
I don't know. It's just always been this magical place to me. Then again, I'm a history nerd, so how could it not be? Last time I did visit, we went out on the north end. I don't think I'll be doing that again. That was expensive. Tried to get a decent dinner and drinks, and I almost became an indentured servant. I just read this historical thing about how many Irish were indentured servants back in the day, here in the United States. I'm sure that included quite a few of my relatives. But that's all part of the charming, wallet-emptying experience of living in Beantown, or visiting. The average home value in Boston, Massachusetts, is $707,000. That's actually a little bit better than I was expecting it to be. The average Joe in Boston has to spend about 45% of their income for housing. And that's just going off the average annual income. There's plenty of people in Boston making $3 million a year, and they're probably spending, 5% of their income on housing.
Yeah. That's where you wanted to go.
We looked, didn't we, at Portland?
Number 7, Portland, Oregon. Living in Portland, Oregon is like being in a quirky indie movie where the cost of living and the local government play the main villain. It is the type of town where you could ride your bike to a vegan donut shop, attend a yoga class in a brewery, and still not have enough money left over to buy a house.
Maybe it's not for
or
me.
pay rent without having 4 roommates. But we always have enough money for coffee. That's weird. The city is notorious for its keep Portland weird vibe, but it seems like the real weirdness is how quickly you burn through money living in this city. Now, we've gone over Portland many times before, so I don't have to tell you that they just have this outrageous homeless situation, and the city's been in bad shape for quite a few years now. We've said that many times on this channel, we've gone over it, but I still get people in the comment, I noticed how you didn't mention the homeless, Briggs. And my personal favorite, your bias is showing. Of course it is, I'm human. All humans are biased. One good thing about Portland, well actually a couple good things about Portland, is hiking is free, and there's plenty of places to do that here in Portland, Oregon. After your hike, it's probably raining. Take off your shirt, take a shower, you'll be good to go. The average home value in Portland, Oregon is $515,000. 47% of the average Joe's salary goes to housing in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, gotta be. I thought that'd be number 1.
I did as
It's gotta be
well.
LA.
Number 6, New York City. New York City has been called the city that never sleeps. If you ever visit Vegas, you'll think the same thing could be said there too. The best thing about being in New York City is you're constantly surrounded by some of the best restaurants, theaters, and museums in the world.
Not gonna lie, I love New York.
I do as well, but every time, obviously we lived there for a long time, but every time we've been, you just can't get into any of the really decent restaurants.
Yeah, it has always been difficult to get into the top restaurants.
Yeah.
We did last time we went. We got into a really nice Italian, didn't we? But that was through someone we knew who got us in, sort of thing.
Yeah, we'd already booked.
We sorted that out. But it's one of them places, New York, where you can just get anything you want.
Yeah.
And I love that. The convenience of having whatever you want on tap is just right there at any time of the day or night. And it's just one of them cities where you've got everything. You've got crazy and you've got beautiful at the same time, next to each other.
Yeah.
You've got everything just there, and that's the attraction for me with New York.
Yeah.
And I love that big city vibe.
Yeah,
where it's the biggest. New York, without doubt, is the biggest city in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People talk Tokyo, London, Paris, places like LA. Nothing comes close to New York. And I know a lot of people go, it's a shithole, and it is. I get that as well. It is a shithole, but at the same time, it's stunning.
Yeah.
And it's got everything you want in New York, and it's hard to beat that as a place.
I was going to say, when we were younger, the first time I went, I didn't like it. It was too busy. I felt intimidated. Yeah. But I guess I was young, and I'd never been in that environment before where you travel. Now I love it. I don't feel scared. I walk around on my own.
Same. First time I went to Bangkok, I was like, what is this place? This is just proper like weird. And I'm stood there just looking at everyone going, what's going on here? And then you go a couple of times and you think, pretty cool place.
Yeah.
You know, you understand what it's about. And I think that's what you've got to do with New York. You've got to understand what it's about. Yeah. I'd love to live in New York. I want to live on that billionaire row in them massive, the high rise, like at the top on the penthouse. Yeah. So I'm going to do a GoFundMe page so we can raise 38 billion.
World. But enjoying them often gives you a feel like you've been mugged afterwards. Yeah. Your money's gone, your wallet's probably gone, and you just want to get back to your 6x8 apartment you pay $4,000 for. You know, a typical night in New York City. Renting a tiny apartment can cost you an arm and leg in New York City, and that's before you even think about the cost of utilities, groceries, and those tempting nights out on the town. But despite the hefty price tag, the experience of living in the Big Apple is something truly unparalleled, making all those expensive feel almost worth it, at least to some of us. We all can't be the same, or life would be pretty boring. The average home value in New York City is $1,122,000. That's brutal. The good news is people living there make a lot of money, so the average Joe puts about 48% of his income towards housing.
Interesting place, Seattle.
Number 5, Seattle. Ah, yes, Seattle, one of my favorite cities, where the coffee flows like water and occasionally you get to see Mount Rainier. It's not too far from the city, but since it's always overcast, cloudy, or raining, you don't get to see it that often. Everything in Seattle is expensive. Rent, housing, utilities. You're constantly playing that game. How much of my paycheck can I spend on a shoebox apartment and still afford a daily meal? You do a little number crunching, then you go to REI's website and start looking at tents, and that's how it begins. Seattle is a very expensive place. I've looked at housing there, looking at buying a house, things like that. It is terribly expensive, especially very expensive for what you're getting. It's like California prices without all the sunshine. The average home value in Seattle is $815,000. The average Joe spends 50% of his paycheck on housing there. That's why so many people that work in Seattle don't live in Seattle. They can't afford it. Number 4, Sacramento. Sacramento is California's oldest incorporated city, officially incorporated on February 27, 1850. Living in Sacramento has its perks. It's not too far from the mountains, and it's not too far from the beach. At least that's what they say. I grew up in a beach community, so in my opinion, 10 minutes away from the beach is pretty far. They're like an hour, hour and a half, depends on where you go. But they still say they're close, so we'll go with it. Living in Sacramento is not cheap, even though it's an hour or so away from the ocean. Rent prices have been creeping up over the last handful of years, making finding a decent place without breaking the bank kind of a challenge. And it's not just the rent and mortgage and all that, it's everything. Just going out for a meal and grabbing coffee feels like you're constantly reminded that your paycheck can only be stretched so far. If you move to Sacramento, just be prepared to do a little budgeting. Sacramento has a lot of crime. Sacramento has a lot of homeless people. Despite all that, there's a lot to love about this city. It's got a great downtown, endless outdoor activities. Now, I say great downtown, you got to navigate some campsites, but other than that, it's pretty nice. But housing is expensive in Sacramento. The average home value in Sacramento is $462,000. And 51.1% of the average Joe's average income goes to housing here.
Not paying enough.
No.
Jackson, Wyoming.
Number 3, Jackson, Wyoming. Jackson, Wyoming is one of the most beautiful cities you could live in or around. I've been here several times in the last few years, and each time I think, you know what, I might live here someday. Then I started looking at real estate prices and I changed my mind. If you look on Zillow right now, there's only one place for sale that's under $1 million, and that's south of Jackson, down in South Park. And it's going for $990,000. I'm looking at some of the homes for sale. Here in Portland, Oregon, I would say some of these go for $800,000. In Jackson, it's going for like $2.5 million. And the Portland metro area supposedly has pretty high real estate prices. This place is insane. They have some really nice homes.
Why?
What's causing it to be so expensive?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I've never even heard of it.
No.
Have you?
No.
Not saying because I've not heard of it. It's not what's it, but I mean the scenery looks beautiful, stunning. But what's taking people there? Because you're gonna have to earn money. Is he some kind of like tech giants there that have got headquarters there?
I don't know, because I know quite a few country music stars live in Wyoming, so I think they've got all these like massive ranches. But
you think there's a lot of land going around in sort of like places like Wyoming and Idaho, all around there, Montana. But this has blown my mind. I'm gonna have to proper have a deep dive into Wyoming.
Yeah, have to
Jackson, Wyoming. See what's going on there.
Here that aren't crazy nice. They're decent, and I'd be happy to live in any one of them. But they're not those take your breath away type houses. Wow. They're just really nice. They go for about $4 million. Whoa. You want one of those blow your mind type houses? There's none for sale right now, but if you do find one, it's probably going for over $8 million. This is a beautiful city and a beautiful area. The stats are really good. Other than cold weather, there isn't much wrong with Jackson, Wyoming. One guy explained buying a house in Jackson, Wyoming as the same as buying a car for $10,000 more because the dealership was far better decorated. If you like to ski, you like to be outdoors, and you like to look at beautiful mountains, move to Jackson, Wyoming. You have to be rich to live there. The locals, if they're living there because they got their house gifted to them from like a relative or something. Wealth. Just been in the family so long, it's never really cost you much. The average home value in Jackson, Wyoming is $2,023,000. Yeah, you heard me right. The average Joe would have to spend 57.5% of his income on housing to live in Jackson, Wyoming. So that tells you if you are working there, you're getting paid.
I'm looking at these ski resorts here, right? And these must be like, I mean, you've got the cable lifts and all that, and you can see the ski slopes there. But this must be like the elite ski area. I'm thinking, like your Aspen, places like, and where you've got like these. I don't know what's the most elite ski. I've only heard of Aspen.
But when you look at Aspen, you can see that it looks elite.
They've got massive. They've got them dream houses, haven't they?
The houses are amazing. But when I'm looking at that,
there's nothing about Jackson, Wyoming I've seen so far apart from the scenery, like the mountain views and all that kind of stuff that's appealing. I'm looking at the houses that they've shown, and I know these are stock footage. I know this isn't what's it, but he was saying there's no houses that are wow.
Yeah.
And for £2 million, you want a wow house, or $2 million, you need a wow house. Exactly. I think you want something that's like stately.
Yeah.
You don't want I get going to New York and getting the apartment. I get that for $2 million.
You're in the middle of everything. Yeah.
You're right in the middle of New York City. This is Jackson, Wyoming. And it must be an elite ski resort. It must be something
to make the prices that high.
It must be where I
can't even think of what job you would do there to be able to afford to.
I'm thinking it's a holiday resort, like a skiing resort that's just for the rich and famous. Yeah. And that's what attracts them. And they've made it that elite that they only want them.
But that's only a certain amount of time of the year.
Yeah, but you only want them people coming to that resort. And it's a bit like like I say, your Aspen, Colorado's where you've got your elite sort of people that go there. And I'm sure people will give me mention like 15, 20 other sort of like elite areas you can go to.
Resorts, yeah.
Yeah, but this is the only thing I'm thinking it is.
Yeah. Pretty good, but it's still not enough to live there.
Let us know. San Jose.
California, I can understand it.
Number 2, San Jose, California. Being a resident of San Jose, California is like having a front row seat to the tech world's biggest party, but you realize you forgot your wallet at home when it comes time to chip in for the pizza. This is a city where the weather's almost always perfect, where billionaire tech moguls play a weird modern-day Game of Thrones. But if you do move there, and let's say you're making $75,000 a year, you won't have to worry about what those tech moguls are doing because you'll be too busy selling pictures of your feet and collecting aluminum cans just to pay your rent. The average home value in San Jose, California is $1.3 million.
Wow.
The average Joe spends 63.2% of their income on housing if they live here.
The weather, isn't it? Nice all year round.
All right, before we get to number 1, if you're looking to move to any place in the United States...
Where do you think number 1 is?
It's got to be LA.
You think so? I'm thinking San Diego, because that's another place where the weather's perfect all year round.
It could be Miami, part Miami. Don't know, but again, Florida is one of them. I'm not sure Florida's sort of like as appealing for people with the hurricanes that pass through there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's got to be California. It's got to be LA.
You think?
Yeah.
Let's see.
States, there's a link for a website called Home and Money in the description area below. They can help you get in touch with a real estate agent anywhere in the...
San Francisco.
And number 1, San Francisco. Yeah, I bet you didn't see this one coming. If you want to live in San Francisco, first of all, imagine paying $1 gazillion to live in a shoebox. While in that shoebox every night, there's heavy drug use going on all around your shoebox. Eventually someone throws up on it, then pees on it, and then goes about their day. You call the city to complain, they giggle and hang up the phone. The good news is, every single block has a place that sells great avocado toast. While you eat your avocado toast and drink your $8 cup of coffee, you could stare at the Golden Gate Bridge and pull hypodermic needles out of the soles of your shoes with a pair of pliers. The average home value in San Francisco is $1.2 million. The average Joe, if he was going to live there in the city, would have to spend 72% of their income on housing. All right, that's today's...
Interesting take on it.
Yeah.
I like Briggs' videos.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's one of them. It's an interesting take where, like he said, all humans are biased.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sort of like there'd be a lot of bias towards a lot. I know a lot. San Francisco gets a lot of hate.
Yeah.
And we've got a good friend of ours who just came back recently from San Francisco, and he spends a lot of time in the USA.
Yeah.
And he said to me, "Never go." He said it's that bad.
Yeah.
And you trust him. He's a good friend of ours. He knows what we like.
Yeah.
But for him to say don't go,
yeah.
and it's changed, and he spent a lot of time in San Francisco, and especially down that tech sort of like areas of California. But I don't know, that's just mega expensive.
Yeah.
That Jackson, Wyoming's blown my mind.
Yeah, me too. I just understand how.
You have to let us know in the comments because that's got to be an elite ski resort.
Yeah.
It's got to be. Like, I don't know, one of the top. But again, where are you staying?
Yeah.
Unless you live there, and the houses are not that great. They're not dream houses.
No.
If the rich and famous are going there, they tend to knock down whatever they're buying and build their own.
Build
a dream house. It's got me that
Crazy,
one.
yeah.
It's really interesting that because it gives you a good insight, especially if you're thinking of going there. I don't think we'd ever live in a major city anyway. I mean, I'd love to live in the city.
Yeah.
But I know realistically we've got to move into the suburbs for retirement purposes.
Yeah.
You know, and do the old age thing and go away gracefully rather than go away partying hard.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, to live somewhere on the outskirts of places like your Bostons, and I mean, we looked at North Carolina, South Carolinas, and they're very appealing for us because they've got that climate sort of thing. But I don't know, I do look at when I see things like Boston or Miami and things like that, I'm thinking, I want to be around them big cities so I can just pop in. I can be 20 minutes just outside or half an hour and just pop in. And that's you know, that's what we've got now with Manchester. We're only 5 minutes from Manchester town centre, and it's and that's vibrant, that's buzzing, sort of thing. But it's nice just to walk away sometimes and go, what a headache.
Enough,
I don't need to do that today. And especially this weekend's going to be like proper like it's going to be bedlam in Manchester this weekend, because for those that don't know, it's Manchester City versus Manchester United.
The derby.
It's derby this weekend, so it's where every blue hates every red, and it's personal. It does become very personal this weekend. So we don't today. We don't start talking.
No.
Or we stop talking today.
Yeah.
We don't have any discussions about anything, and then the hatred kicks in for the whole weekend. So Manchester will be a bit of a crazy place to go, and guess where we're going? Manchester. Anyway, good that. I enjoyed that.
I did
Always
as
enjoy
well.
the Briggs videos, like I say. Hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Don't forget, like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Cheers.